Good morning, and welcome to the Future of Academic Affairs Forum. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Alison Sanders, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Chief of Staff for the EVC, and I will be moderating the large group sessions in today's forum. Today, we will explore how we can use a collective impact framework here at UC San Diego to work collaboratively to erase opportunity gaps for staff, faculty, and students. Our day will begin with a presentation on the EVC's vision and the collective impact framework, followed by a series of lightning talks by our colleagues, sharing how they've used the collective impact approach to magnify the already impactful work they've been doing on projects across campus. Following these lightning talks, you will be invited to join a breakout room to connect with your colleagues and explore different examples of collective impact on our campus and ask questions you may have at this stage in our process. After the breakout room discussions, we will gather back together to hear summaries of the breakout room conversations, answer some questions, and then EVC Simmons will share some closing remarks and next steps. Please feel free to use the Q&A window to submit additional questions for discussion in the breakout rooms and following the breakout room time. Due to our time limitation, unfortunately, we will not be able to get to all of your questions, but we will log these and make sure we answer any questions you may have either by posting them on the Collective Impact website or in a follow-up email. Also, we will be recording the lightning talks and posting them on the same Collective Impact website, which will go live next week. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our Executive Vice Chancellor, Elizabeth Simmons, to open today's forum.
Thanks very much, Alison. I'm really excited to see all of you here, to see us, that so many of you have come to be part of this gathering and this conversation. It's, I think, really important for us to think together about the future that all of us want for academic affairs, because we are all part of academic affairs. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to be trying to set the stage for the really exciting parts of today, which are the lightning talks and the breakout sessions. So to give you a bit of a background on what we're going to talk about, if we think about the strategic plan of the university, it calls on us to be student-centered, research-focused, service-oriented. We're very familiar with that. And if we think about the history of the university, we're strongly focused on doing things in a very individually creative way. And the campus has grown really fast. So that means that there are a lot of really fantastic efforts toward the strategic plan that are right now kind of separate and not necessarily talking to one another as much as they might. Now we have some common goals that through a lot of conversations, I think that we would all agree are really important. And at this point, we need to be thinking about how are we going to work together more in order to try to achieve those goals. So let me walk you through this a little bit. Let's start with the next slide. So the way that I would talk about the vision that I have for academic affairs is that I aspire for UC San Diego to work collectively and to work coherently in becoming an inclusive, student-centered, research-focused, service-oriented university. I particularly envision that we'll scale up the size, the connectivity, the impact, the extent of our research collaborations across all disciplines, and that we will be as proudly innovative in education as we already are in scholarship. And it's also crucial that we empower every Triton to succeed, every undergraduate, every graduate student, every postdoc, every staff member, every faculty member, all of us. That's the vision that we're aiming toward. Now, on the next slide, we have something a little bit more specific about some of the shared goals that we've articulated together. The big one that we'll spend most time on today is thinking about erasing the opportunity gaps, again, for all of our students, all of our employees. We also have the goals around educational innovation, around more interdisciplinary and community engaged research, elevating the arts and humanities into the campus identity, and emphasizing how societal and scientific advances really are deeply connected. To manifest those goals, to really make progress on them, we need to keep developing very purposeful habits of collaboration. Now, some of them we've already been working on, for example, embedding equity, diversity, and inclusion into everything that we work on as a campus. We also need to keep thinking about how we can do more in partnership with one another and with the community, look out for finding more external revenue streams that can give us more opportunities to invest, keep using things like Lean Six Sigma as a way to pursue continuous improvement and take advantage of lessons from the pandemic, painful though this period has been for all of us. And the habit that I'd like to talk with you about today and that we'll all be exploring is the idea of collective impact as a way of making those shared goals really manifest in everything we do and taking advantage of collective data sets, common tools, common assessments, so that the unique programs we already have that are working towards those goals can be even more effective. So going to the next slide then, it's natural to ask, why right now? We're still in the middle of the latest surge of the pandemic. And I think that there are three reasons. One is, in fact, our very experiences with return to learn during the pandemic have shown how much we can do together through very concerted action. Now we have an opportunity based on that to see how we can make progress on our very long-standing common priorities by using that kind of collaborative effort, that collaborative approach of return to learn much more widely. And there's an additional incentive in that the governor's budget has pledged 5 years of budget increases for the UC if we make progress on closing opportunity gaps. So this is the why now. Now going on to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about what is collective impact anyway? What does that mean? Is it a new initiative, a new project we have to take on? And my answer is no, we're still working on the same goals we've had, the same projects that we've had towards those goals, but we're working together we're changing the approach to be more effective. So right now, there's some words on the left that you could read that describe collective impact. I'm going to focus on the diagram on the right, showing that right now we have a lot of individual projects that are achieving great things locally. But if you move along the arrow, you see that if we align the projects together, they can give a bigger push in the direction that we're trying to go. Alignment, collaboration, partnership can very systematically help us achieve more together. So the next slide then shows some of the very specific elements of collective impact. We start with a common agenda. The participants need to have a very clear set of goals, a vision for how they're going to work together to try to achieve those goals. Partners have to agree on what they're going to measure to figure out if they're succeeding, what assessments, what data, and this is how we hold one another accountable. Partners will choose mutually reinforcing activities. So maybe over here, something I've already been doing, maybe I tweak it a little bit so that it will also help your group. And maybe you do something similar so that what you're doing, a slight tweak to it, might also help my group. Then we're both having a bigger impact and we get some additional synergy. All this requires a lot of communication. And in addition, it's crucial to have a backbone of support that can help with those additional facilitated conversations that are needed to get all of this going, to help with the assessment and the data collection and the analysis. And that backbone of support is crucial. And my office is going to provide that backbone of support to help us all shift into this different approach to the work that we are already doing together. Now, moving to the next slide, you can see that there are steps that one goes through, phases that one goes through in setting up collective impact, and that we are partway through this process of setting up the larger scale collective impact, moving beyond some pilot projects. And if we go to the next slide, then I'd like to talk about what this looks like in the context of the campus. So the light yellow dots with dark writing on them are university partners. So they might be individual departments or people or programs. And they unite together through the dark blue discs that are working groups that bring partners with common interests together to explore how they might do things together. There needs to be in the center, the striped circle, the steering committee that helps make sure that people are having the conversations that they need to, that the working groups are functioning well, that we're all keeping the common goals in mind. And then the orange framework behind it all, that's the backbone of services and resources. Now, the next slide that you can look at gives an example of how this might look at the university in terms of, say, working groups are often led by cross-cutting units like the library or the teaching and learning commons, student affairs, or the graduate division. And the backbone would be provided by the Division of Extended Studies because there's a lot of expertise there. But I'd like to move to the next slide to show the collective impact network that we've already been involved in, Return to Learn. And here, the university partners, again, are all of you and your units. The working groups are things like the Emergency Operations Group, Research Continuity, Education Continuity, Business Continuity, task forces, and so on. The steering committee structure is the familiar COVID monitoring team, COVID response team, Return to Learn steering, and the Chancellor's cabinet. And the backbone has been provided by UC San Diego Health, Office of Strategic Initiatives, Environmental Health and Safety, that backbone that's helped us get it all done. This is a collective impact example we have already been living. So think about that. We're already doing this. Now, can we apply this to other areas that are really important to us in the university? So moving to the next slide, I just want to put together quickly the several things that I've been mentioning. We started with the vision that includes working collectively and focusing on empowering every Triton to succeed. We have the shared overarching goals that look at specifically erasing opportunity gaps. And we have collective impact as a habit of purposeful collaboration. So moving to the next slide then, we need to think about, well, in this example of erasing opportunity gaps, what would be the metrics? How do we tell if it's working? So for an individual, for thinking about at the level of the campus, what we should see is that our students of all different demographic groups graduate on time, they graduate at the same graduation rates, they all have access to the same high impact educational and research experiences. At the level of individual projects, each project would set its metrics for showing that it's having a larger footprint, it's having increased impact. And we'll hear from projects like Summer Bridge, Mentoring for All, graduate student recruitment in the lightning talks, where you'll get a sense of how they're going to tell what their success would look like. Moving on to the next slide, you might wonder, well, what are the benefits to me and my organization and my project of collective impact? So a couple quick examples. At the level of an individual student would see a benefit by finding that the supportive services and the special kinds of educational experiences that they'd like to access actually are available to everybody smoothly and easily. At the level of a project will see an improvement by having access to the backbone of support that lets them do the assessment they always wanted to do, having partners to work with to broaden the scope of impact that they can have. At the level of an individual or maybe a campus unit, there'd be the same kinds of benefits as a project would have, but also the mutually reinforcing activities would enable new dimensions to become part of the unit that hadn't been there before, that could have added benefits for things that the unit wanted to accomplish. So I wanted to give this overview of where we're going, how we're trying to get there together. And now we're going to go on to the really exciting part of this gathering, which will be the lightning talks. And so Alison, back over to you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for framing this for us. So we will now segue into this morning's lightning talks to hopefully give a taste of all of the great work some of the great work that's happening in academic affairs. As a reminder to our presenters, these will be short, and my job is to keep us on time. So without further ado, our first lightning speaker this morning is Ebene Williams, Director of Virtual Experience and Peer Engagement Initiatives for Academic Affairs, and she will be talking to us about the Mentoring for All initiative.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here. If every student at UCSD had a mentor that wanted a mentor was a question that EBC Simmons has a dream of having, that every student here could have a mentor who wants a mentor. Vice Chancellor Satterlin was inspired by this and asked me to lead this initiative on behalf of our campus. My name is Dr. Ebene Williams. I'm the Director of Virtual Experience and Peer Engagement Initiatives, and I'm excited to talk to you about Mentoring for All and what we've been able to achieve in about a year. Next slide, please. So you'll see that this number 5,000 is on the screen. You know we have about over 40,000 students at UCSD, but in a year with a committee, we've been able to engage 5,000 of our current UC San Diego Tritons in mentoring relationships. They're in the form of peer-to-peer as well as alumni. We're leveraging technology to make this happen using 2 different platforms. We're also leveraging the beautiful and great expansiveness of a committee of 25 faculty, staff, and students. Those faculty, staff, and students helped envision what was possible, guide what we're doing, and really serve the purpose of the collective impact. This platform, we've been able to leverage technology. You know, we've been in COVID. So with COVID has allowed for some opportunities to think about other technologies and ways to do, and things that if you are running a mentoring program, you might be excited about is we do pre-matching, that we don't have to use those Excel sheets and those late nights or our graduate students or our undergraduate students to do the pairing. We're using technology. We're also partnered with ABC Harrelson and her team to engage our alumni. They already had a platform and we're looking for other ways to continue to keep our alumni engaged, and they're interested in connecting with our students. We also noticed that other UCs were using one of the 2 platforms that we're using, and we've been able to leverage that in a great way and really impact what's going on. Moving forward, we're engaging graduate students, and we are looking, yes, next slide is fine. Moving forward, we're engaging graduate students to join the platform. We currently targeted our first-year students, underrepresented minority seniors, and now we're looking at engaging graduate students on the platform. Most of our mentoring opportunities are open to students anytime they want to engage. There's mentoring.ucsd.edu that's available. What's up right now are a slide of goals that we're looking to engage for our whole campus. So we're making a strategic plan that should be done at the end of this quarter. And I'm not going to read these goals. You can see the yellow highlights of things that are exciting around connecting and communicating and collaborative and bridging and creating a pipeline. There's a lot of fun things that we're doing here that are aligned with collective impact and are only possible with collective engagement. I would be wrong to not share the next slide, which is all the people who've engaged with all the different pieces of what we've been able to achieve. And this is not a comprehensive list. This is the committee list. We also have pulled together programs that already existed before we started this initiative and started doing best practice shares, which is a great part of collective impact. So if you're listening to this and you have a mentoring program, we're excited to engage with you. If you're doing mentoring because you're a faculty member who's been doing it since before you got your PhD, we're excited to talk about those best practices as our graduate students are really excited to enhance those opportunities. I really appreciate you for listening to me today. Last slide. My name is Dr. Ebene Williams. We're excited about mentoring, and our overall goal is to provide mentorship opportunities for all students, cultivating a sense of belonging and fostering student-centered community, which is something that we found in the UQ's data. Join our breakout session if you'd like to talk more. Email me directly if you want to be included or have something to contribute. Thank you so much, EBC Simmons and ABC Sanders, for having me here in the lightning talk. Mentoring can be available to all our students based on that.
Thank you so much. This is a very exciting initiative, and we look forward to hearing more on the amazing progress that you've already been able to accomplish so far. So next up, we have University Librarian Eric Mitchell and Associate University Librarian Danny Cook, who will be telling us a little bit more about affordable and open course materials.
Thank you, Alison, and good morning, everybody. I'm Eric Mitchell, the Audrey Geisel University librarian, and I'm joined today by Danny Cook, our Associate University Librarian for Learning and User Experience. And we're presenting today on behalf of course, ourselves and our committee co-chair, David Ritter. Next slide, please. So the Affordable and Open Course Materials Project is part of the larger collective impact project focused on affordable learning. The goal of our effort is to address equity gaps and to promote greater access to course materials, in that to have a positive impact on student success. Some of the strategies we're exploring include lowering the cost of access to course materials through new textbook content licensing models. This is being led by the bookstore. We're building on and supporting faculty creation and publication of open access materials, and we're designing incentive models that lead to sustainable course material development. Next slide. We're approaching this work using collective impact principles such as defining a common goal and outcome and working together as a community towards these shared outcomes. The foundation of our work is based on student, faculty, and staff input and is being driven by a team of experts. So with that, let me now turn this over to Danny to give you a quick preview of some of what we found so far.
Okay, thank you so much, Eric, and thanks so much for the time this morning. Next slide, please. So in the fall, we launched a student survey to understand more about how students are encountering course materials now. And what we really found resonates that course material access is an equity issue. So this survey was a collaboration between the library, the Teaching and Learning Commons, and institutional research. And it was a population level survey of our undergraduate population. What we found, I'm going to give you a quick snapshot here about student spending in particular. So almost a third of our students reported that they spent more than $200 on course materials in fall of 2021, and 53% of students have not bought the required course materials due to their cost. Across the board, one of our findings that kind of surprised us was many students let us know that they had purchased course materials and then they never actually used them in class. And that was true across the board for people who spent not very much money on course materials and students who spent quite a bit of money on course materials. From this data set, we found that the most expensive majors here on campus appear to be biology and chemistry, then followed by mechanical and aerospace engineering, political science, and international studies, which again, kind of mirrors what we see in the national landscape and the price of course materials and how they've risen over time. Next slide, please. One of the other surprises that we found in the data was that 80% of students have been required to purchase access codes, which are codes that allow them to complete homework or quizzes in courses so that they can receive a grade. In the qualitative data, students really let us know that they found this to be sort of a pay for play model and something that prevented them from succeeding to their fullest extent. So this is something that we want to make sure we pay attention to in our future work. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, course material access is at its core an equity issue. So we know that students who have more access to course materials tend to do better in their classes. And we found that students from historically marginalized groups did have to spend more money that accrued interest than other groups. So from this chart, you can see that students who identify as African American or Black, Asian American, or Asian or Chicano Latino are more likely to use federal student loans, apply for grants, or take on private debt in order to pay for their course materials, which of course has long-term impacts. Next slide, please. This is true across demographic categories where whenever we see kind of a historically marginalized group. So this is also true for first generation students. So this is again, something that we want to make sure that we pay attention to as we think about our equity-based issues here on campus and making sure that all of our students from whatever background they come from have the opportunity to succeed here. Next slide, please. So we're happy to answer additional questions, to share more about our data, to brainstorm ideas with you in the breakout room. And of course, here is our contact information. And thank you again for the opportunity to share this work with you this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Derek. This can have a really big impact on our students. So we look forward to hearing more about the work that you're engaging in. Our next presentation will come from Dean of Undergraduate Education, John Moore, and Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Becky Pettit, who will be talking about identifying and erasing opportunity gaps through academic program reviews.
Good morning. Next slide, please. Our work to erase opportunity gaps through academic and program reviews is directly tied to our strategic plan for inclusive excellence, through which we hold our campus accountable for improving access and success and creating conditions for all of our students to thrive. We're using opportunity gaps because we're moving away from the deficit framing of achievement gaps. When we talk about achievement gaps, we place the blame on students for their perceived failure to succeed. Opportunity gaps, on the other hand, focuses on the environment that students are exposed to and how it limits their opportunities. It refers to the fact that things such as zip code, race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status can influence their opportunities in life and impact their educational outcomes. When we're working with our colleagues who are conducting academic program reviews, we encourage them to have an equity-minded lens where they critically examine our institutional policies, practices, and structures through a lens that questions why inequities exist. We want to ask ourselves how and why are current practices failing to serve students who are experiencing inequities. And we have to pay explicit attention to structural inequality and institutionalized racism and focus on responding in ways that transform our systems. In summary, it's our responsibility to change the educational environment to support the success of students, especially students who have been historically and continuously marginalized by our educational systems. Over to you, John. Next slide.
Thank you. So there were a few independent things that happened in the past few years that catalyzed this initiative. One was that we had our reaccreditation, and our reaccrediting committee said that we have to pay more attention to assessing learning outcomes and in integrating these assessments in program reviews. And the other is that we had to work on erasing opportunity gaps. Another thing that happened in the past few years was the George Floyd murder, and which allowed many people to start to examine aspects of structural racism. And we received a list of demands from many of our Black students. One response to these demands were changes that the Academic Senate made in the charge to departments and programs that undergo program review. Now, the point of a program review has always been to ensure that our programs support academic success for all students. But in particular, the new charge asked that departments talk about how they create educational environment that supports underrepresented, low-income and first-generation students, and to, in particular, note and address any opportunity gaps along racial, ethnic identity, and socioeconomic status lines. Next slide, please. So this gave us the opportunity to leverage the program reviews and to create a cycle of assessment, which is handled through my office and through the Teaching and Learning Commons, where we aid departments in looking at data that will help them identify opportunity gaps and help them look at design assessments that will allow them to essentially decide how to address these gaps. So programs comment on several questions that are related to inclusive pedagogy and student outcomes, how the program is designed to promote academic success for all students, where and what are the opportunity gaps, and this might have to do with grades in gateway courses, it may have to do with graduation rates and retention rates, and then what are the program's efforts and plans to address these gaps. And promoting student success and addressing these opportunity gaps is a moral imperative as the campus begins to address structural racism. We know that these opportunity gaps, as V.C. Pettit mentioned, are the result of disparate opportunities throughout the student's life. And while we don't have direct control over what happened with the students before they came to our campus, we do have control over how we ensure the success of students once they get here. So the program review and the assessment cycle are tied together, and participating through the collective impact allows us to use assessment as a collaborative way to address opportunity gaps. Thank you.
Another outstanding talk. Thank you so much, John and Becky, for sharing this important work. Now we'll hear from Angeline Villanueva Yang and Jim Antony about the Office of Outreach, Access, Recruitment, and Retention, or Oer Squared.
Thank you very much. Trying to see if my video is on here. My name is James Anthony. I'm Dean of the Graduate Division. And what I want to talk to you about with my colleague, Angeline Yang, is the new office called Oer Squared, which stands for Outreach, Access, Recruitment, and Retention. When I arrived at UC San Diego, I was very impressed with the wide array diversity of programs that were occurring in the Graduate Division, focused on outreach, access, recruitment, and retention. And I was also equally impressed with the number of initiatives that were nested within individual academic programs, academic divisions, schools, colleges. What I noticed, though, is that there wasn't necessarily an organizing framework, something that allowed all of these seemingly disparate initiatives to work together collectively, as the EVC has charged us to think about. How could we work together to have collective impact when we think about improving our outreach, access, and recruitment of graduate and professional students, but also the overall retention? The vision behind Oer Squared is really quite simple: to be an umbrella organization within the Graduate Division that will allow us to provide synergy, not only to the things that we're doing locally in the Graduate Division, but also things that are happening all out in the academic programs and the divisions themselves, collectively doing more together to really change the way in which we reach out to prospective students, the way we recruit them, but also the other side of the equation, taking care of the underrepresented students we already have to make sure that they're having a highly engaged and successful experience. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Angeline Yang, who is the inaugural director of the Oer Squared office, and she'll walk us through some of the things that we're doing and what we're envisioning. Angeline?
Thank you so much, Dean Anthony. Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to connect with all of you today and to talk about our new office, Oer Squared. Our office will focus many of our new initiatives on caring for and creating opportunities to enhance a positive campus experience for our current graduate students. At Graduate Division, we already have a very robust outreach and recruitment strategy that's inclusive of connecting with potential students at national and statewide diversity conferences, building partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities, and minority serving institutions, and our pathway programs that provide summer research experiences such as STARS and UC Leads. Next slide, please. We also have some great retention programs that build strong graduate student communities. For example, our University Center for Exemplary Mentoring, the Sloan Scholars Program, provides faculty and peer-to-peer mentorship and professional development. And it's been so impactful for our students that we're looking into institutionalizing this and integrating it into our Competitive Edge program, which is a summer bridge-like experience for graduate students. However, these programs are accessible to a limited number of students. And in order to better serve our larger community of underrepresented students, there will be a need to scale up our existing programs and increase our retention efforts. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges or considerations that we foresee in this effort may be defining the factors that influence underrepresented student retention and attrition, and considering how Graduate Division, in collaboration with our campus partners, can address them, identify how success should be measured, providing opportunities to centrally support the departments, because many departments have their own retention efforts where some other departments may need some additional support. So this may lend itself to partner and to create best practices as we collaborate across campus. Next slide, please. Oer Squared will approach supporting our students collaboratively so that many of our colleagues' work align with our graduate student retention goals. And there is already programming across campus to support our students. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging our resources and avoid duplication of work and be very intentional about the programming that we develop so that it's filling in any of the gaps in the ways that we support our students. So we're really excited to enhance our retention efforts and invite any opportunities to partner across campus to support our graduate students. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Angeline, and welcome, Angeline. We look forward to hearing more about the work of the Office of Oer Squared. Next in our lightning talk schedule is Dean of Undergraduate Research Advancement, David Artis, who will discuss scaling undergraduate research and internship experiences.
Good morning, everyone. I am David Artis. In 2017, I was part of a UC San Diego delegation that met at the Office of the President for a meeting called Achieving Collective Excellence in UC's Undergraduate Research Experience. And I want to go to the next slide to begin my talk with focus on the first statement of the summary. And you can see this, I'll just read it very quickly. Undergraduate research is a distinguishing feature of a UC education that merits expansion to engage more of our undergraduates. I took this statement as a charge and a challenge. Since that meeting, I think I've been rededicated to the idea, which I'm sure we all share, that research should be an option for every student. Any student who goes through this university system and does not have the chance to participate in research has missed out on what we have called a distinguishing feature. So what is our individual and collective responsibility to make sure that all of our students have this chance to engage with one of the best aspects of the University of California education? I think before we really achieve success in meeting that challenge, we have to start with our current state of affairs. And we know that there are many successful programs allowing our undergraduates to participate in the generation of new knowledge to contribute to our university's research base that have a great impact on their future. But we also know that this is a diffuse state of affairs, that many of our university programs don't share information about opportunities for undergraduates. We don't have a really strong central reporting of these opportunities in place yet. I think we are getting better at this, but we still have some networking to create even amongst ourselves. And I think that I would like to just drop in two questions or challenges within the larger challenge. One is for us to rethink what is undergraduate research. We have to start thinking about moving away from a model that is based on instruction and assigning undergraduates tasks that often takes place in a lab or at least a campus setting, and begin to welcome more field work, more experiential learning exercises, to think about how internships and business opportunities are actually themselves research activities, and to encourage students to participate in these, even if they participate in a research activity and an internship activity, and to let the students know that they can find all of these activities in places that are more central than they are now. In other words, we don't want our students to have to trek across campus, even virtually, to find the best opportunities. The level of cooperation and information sharing at the senior administration level should be such that we can all provide students multiple directions, but I would say that the Undergraduate Research Hub should have the responsibility of making sure that that information is centrally located and that we would be distributing this information, but obviously with the strong support of the partners that we have already. Can we go to the, well, before we go to the next slide, I just want to go back to that picture and show you, this is a wonderful example of collective impact. Those are winners of our Undergraduate Library Research Prize, which is an effort we share with the library and the Alumni Association and VC of Student Affairs. So this is a great example itself of collective impact. Next slide, please. And this is one program I'd like to highlight, which was conceived as a collective impact program, our summer research conference. And you can see, I'll just point to the 37 in the middle of the screen. We have 37 institutions that have students in the 2021 conference. So we had to have a collective impact mindset to reach out to universities, institutions of higher education, not only in Greater San Diego, but across the state and increasingly across the country and now internationally. This requires tremendous support from the Chancellor, the Executive Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs, Research Affairs, And the impact is broadening awareness of the contribution undergraduates make to our research enterprise. It gives them a networking opportunity that I think is rare among college students. I think it also shows a very strong diverse community. In 2021, more than half of the students in our summer research program were underrepresented, first generation and or low income. So this is a great example, and I look for many more. Please, next slide. Just to let you know that I'm here and I would love to continue to collaborate. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'd now like to welcome Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Retention and Success, Maruth Figueroa, and Faculty Director of the Teaching and Learning Commons, David Ryder, to talk about closing opportunity gaps through Summer Bridge.
Thank you so much, Alison. Maruth Figueroa, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Retention and Success, and my colleague David Ryder, Faculty Director for the Teaching and Learning Commons, work together with Summer Bridge. And so to save some time, I'll go ahead and dive into the next slide, please. Summer Bridge on many campuses, including ours, has served as a best practice in engaging and supporting students and the summer prior to the first quarter or their first semester. If you can scroll down just a little bit, specifically, these programs provide the necessary support for students from marginalized or underserved communities. On our campus, we had two great programs, Oasis Summer Bridge and Triton Scholars, prior to 2019, with these same shared goals in mind. In an effort to create a greater impact, sustain and scale the opportunity to more students than ever before, these programs were merged. Further, the current pandemic has allowed us to reimagine how we can deliver the programs to the program and engage our students. In 2021, this past summer, we served over 700 students from 290 in 2019. And our goal for 2022 is to serve 900 students, including a pilot program with transfer students. With the lessons learned, our goal, if you can scroll down, remains to offer more quality learning and flexibility for all of our students to have the opportunity for a confident and productive summer, regardless of geographic location, considering that many of our students have familial work and community responsibilities. We are finding that more and more of our accepted students are ready to get started at UC San Diego. And so we continue to work to make sure that we are ready to support their success and a possible start here on our campus. If you can just scroll down just a little bit more. During our breakout session, we'll engage in a conversation about how each of us is a stakeholder in this effort and how we can align our efforts to better engage our Summer Bridge students. Thank you.
Thank you, Maru. Next up is Mai Nguyen, Director of the Design Lab, who will talk to us about design futures. Mai?
Great, thanks, Alison. Good morning, colleagues. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about the Design Lab and design futures. The Design Lab is now open for operations in the new Design and Innovation building. While there's been strong design expertise at UC San Diego for a long time, especially in human-centered design, our space in this new building offers an opportunity for faculty, students, and researchers across campus to connect, scale up, and accelerate cross-disciplinary design collaborations. Next slide. Our mission in the Design Lab is to be a resource for the campus community. We currently serve over 50 faculty across 7 divisions and schools and engage with many graduate and undergraduate students all across campus. And our building is located at the trolley stop at Pepper Canyon. You probably walk by it if you've been taking the trolley. And this allows us to engage with the broader San Diego Tijuana community. And we want to be sure to carefully engage with the community in authentic ways, with community-driven design and strategic partnerships that will transform the region. And this will be enabled by our presence also in the new downtown UCSD Park and Market building, which is also now open. Members of the Design Lab really care about tackling seemingly intractable societal problems. However, to address these complex issues, we recognize that we can no longer work in silos or even within our own sector. So we want to really employ all of our talents on and off campus to really move the needle on some of the most pressing problems of our day: racial injustice, climate change, health inequities, the racial wealth gap, and others. And we use a framework that includes justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, a future orientation, taking a systems perspective, being disruptive, conducting multi-scalar analyses, and taking a transdisciplinary approach in order to have maximum collective impact. Next. So I'm going to quickly just run through some examples of projects in the Design Lab to provide some insights into how we think about design futures. This is the Health Futures Lab led by Dr. Eli Arnoff-Spencer, which the lab takes a people-centered approach to address health's greatest challenges by engaging across sectors, public, private, nonprofit, and also through multidisciplinary teamwork. Next. This is the Plastic Futures project, which is a collaboration with Pinar Yildiz in visual arts, and also the Center for Renewable Materials to develop biodegradable, sustainable materials, such as by using algae that will transform industries, how industries produce and how people consume goods. Next. And then this is the Indigenous Futures Institute, which is a multidisciplinary group of scholars who are actively working to infuse Indigenous knowledge, history, and experiences in educational and scientific endeavors at UCSD, and who also envision an Indigenous future that represents the authentic history and scientific contributions of Indigenous people. Next. So thinking about your academic unit, what is your design future? And if you want to discuss how you can infuse design and design thinking in your work, join me in the breakout room or reach out by email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mom. What a great presentation. And I know that I'm hoping that this will allow people to think about how they can connect with the Design Lab and the great work that's happening there. Now I have the pleasure of welcoming Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Becky Pettit, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Alison Satterland, and Chief of Staff for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Frank Silva, to talk about advancing Latinx student servingness through collective impact.
Good morning, everybody. Next slide, please. VC Pettit, VC Satterland, and I want to thank EVC Simmons and the Planning Committee for giving us the opportunity to share the collective impact of the Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative. The Latinx Academic Excellence Initiative, which was created in 2019, uses a CI framework to bring about ongoing transformation of UC San Diego to serve our Latinx students and families in a way that is meaningful to them. And I want to highlight that again, in a way that is meaningful to them. It's implemented and activated by the HSI and LAI work group with sponsorship from VC EDI, VC Student Affairs, and Enrollment Management. It's made up of mutually reinforcing coordinated projects across campus, all with shared metrics, all working to improve UC San Diego's ability to be Latinx student-centered and responsive. Next slide, please. One example is the work being done through Mi Universidad, which is a collective of programs and services that focus on Latinx parent, family, and community engagement. We know from the literature and from hearing from our own students that their parents, family, and community are extremely important to them and influential in their decision-making. In fact, when we created this initiative, we interviewed many students and many alumni, and we would ask them, why did you attend university? What was the motivation? And they always said to us consistently in this order, to help my parents, to help my family, to help my community, and to help myself. So our Latinx parents also want their children to attend university, and they want to be part of that process. And our students want them to be part of that process. So staff from all the collaborators listed on the slide, and as you can see, there are many, we work together to intentionally design programs and services using Latinx culture and language as the primary lens to transform the institution in a manner that validates Latinidad. And we do this because we want our Latinx students and their parents and families to feel included. We want to deepen their sense of belonging, and we want them to see that UC San Diego is their university. So therefore, mi universidad, my university, is why we have named this program My University. Real quickly, I'll touch on one example. The projects are listed there at the very bottom that we've been working on. But one example is something that we implemented in the past year and a half, 2 years, which consists of partnership with a community-based organization. This partner is called the Parent Institute for Quality Education. And UC San Diego, along with our other collaborators listed on the slide, partnered with them to create a series of courses around college going and college matriculation. We did this in Spanish, and we offered those courses at the time virtually because of COVID. And we didn't know what to expect, but we had 800 parents sign up for the courses and participate in them. And they are super excited that we're engaging with them and with the community. And another part of that was the in-presence orientation, family orientation that we did this last fall. And again, we did this orientation in a way that was recognizable and meaningful to the Latinx families and parents. So I would like to, next slide, please, have VC Pettit cover another example.
Thank you, Frank. In our holistic, comprehensive approach to becoming an HSI, we're also focusing on the professoriate. We know that when students of color see faculty who look like them, that they are inspired. They can also see themselves as scholars, as thinkers, and creators of new knowledge. So intentionally adding Latinx faculty members as part of our collective approach is a really positive sign. In our breakout session, you'll have the opportunity to hear more about our Latinx cluster hire, which aims to hire 14 faculty members. And the overall initiative, adding this to our existing efforts, we are hoping this will strengthen our academic offerings, increase the opportunity for mentorship for both undergraduate and graduate students, and foster campus-wide and community collaboration. Next slide. Oh, I think that's our last one. So look forward to seeing you in the breakout session.
Thank you so much, Becky and Frank and Alison, for sharing this important work as UC San Diego continues to transition towards becoming a Hispanic serving institution. Next, I'd like to welcome Shankar Subramanian, bioengineering professor, to share more about the creation of the new School of Computing, Information, and Data Sciences.
Thank you, Alison, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you this emergence of this new school. Bob Continenti, who's the Senior Associate Vice Chancellor, was going to present this, but unfortunately he had to be away, and I'm going to be a poor substitute, but I'll try my best. And next slide, please. In early 2020, EVC Simmons and Senior Associate Vice Chancellor Continenti formed a working group to ask the question whether formation or creation of a new school of computing, information, and data sciences is viable and necessary for UCSD. Between January and March of last year, this committee met with every dean, every chancellor, every vice chancellor for all academic units on campus. And the unanimous recommendation of this working group was that the campus initiate immediately the development of a proposal to launch the School of Computing, Information, and Data Sciences. This was motivated by the need for dealing with big data in every walk and domain of our life. And second, many peer institutions have started initiating such large schools towards, and they're spearheaded the efforts towards building next generation data science. And so we thought that it would be timely for UCSD, given its tremendous strengths, to initiate this opportunity, to launch this initiative. Next slide, please. So the vision and mission. So in early this year, we formed late last year, we formed a committee, and this was initiated by the Chancellor and EVC Simmons, chaired by Bob Continetti and myself, to develop a proposal for the new school. And the vision and mission of the school, I'll briefly go over this, is to create an internationally acclaimed school which will serve as a new paradigm for the age of big data. And our goal was to have innovative research and groundbreaking applications and train students for the next generation workforce. And so we worked very hard over the last several months. The committee was an outstanding committee. And we have now an initial proposal, draft proposal, for the creation of the school with a clear vision and mission. So the goal of this, the mission of the school would be to engage in cutting-edge cross-disciplinary research. I'll show you in the next slide. Create synergies for big data applications. I'm sorry, I didn't finish that slide, my apologies. Create synergies for big data applications. Develop and maintain computing infrastructure thanks to a strong presence in the computing world, and establish innovative training programs. And we already have an example of the Halichoglu Institute for Data Sciences creating an undergraduate program, which has been tremendously successful. Next slide, please. So the synergies with creation of the school was transparent in our working group report, and it was further augmented through our discussions in the proposal planning group. I'm going to provide you with a 30-second smorgasbord of kinds of synergies that exist. We spoke with every dean in this process, and Dean of Arts and Humanities, for example, told us that how incredibly helpful this new school would be in terms of diverse aspects of humanities, including things like English literature or literature, where natural language processing can be very useful towards deciphering and comprehending literature and towards creation of new literature. We had discussed with social sciences. In fact, cognitive science is an integral part of the Halichoglu Institute for Data Sciences, and CogSci would be a tremendous player in this new initiative that we are going forward with. Marine sciences, where we think that the vast amounts of data that are generated in through our ships in the Scripps Institute of Oceanography would be helped tremendously through this new development of this joint programs of this new school. Similarly, for management, I don't want to go through everything. I just want to point out that engineering and medicine and pharmacy, biological sciences, they're all are generating incredible amounts of data. And this is really the future of where we are going. And so the creation of such a school would help towards solving imminent problems that arise from this data. Next slide, please. So I just want to give you an intellectual framework for this new School of Data Sciences. I'm happy to discuss this much more at length in the breakout group. There are, great opportunities. There are great opportunities that arise from this. I think I'm running out of time, so maybe I'll just wrap up very quickly. Great opportunities, intellectual opportunities. I can discuss this more in the breakout group towards looking at, kinds of new emergent areas that we are thinking about. Next slide, please. So the sketch timeline is as follows. Our workforce recommendations were submitted in March 2021. The committee proposal draft completion is January 2022. We hope that the administrative draft completion will be February 2022, which will be submitted to the Academic Senate in March. And the anticipated submission to UC Office of President is sometime around summer and fall. And this will help us really complete the creation of a school. It's not every day we create any institution creates a new school. And this is really a grand opportunity for us to be a leading institution in the country. Thank you so much. The next slide, please, and then I'm done.
Thank you, Stenko. We're gonna move on to our next presentation, so we can stay on time. But thank you for walking us through this. Very exciting to think about the prospect of a new school of computing, information, and data sciences. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Rand Steiger, Professor and Arts Strategy Advisor, Interim Arts Strategy Advisor to the EVC, who will be talking about fostering collaboration and communication among campus arts stakeholders. Rand?
Good morning. I'm a composer of instrumental and computer music, and I'm now in my 3rd month of my new position as Arts Strategy Advisor to the EVC. My position is all about collective impact. My main goal is fostering collaboration and communication among campus arts stakeholders. From the start, the arts at UC San Diego were forward-looking. Rather than build arts departments around the study of art history, UCSD's founders had a unique vision for creating laboratories of the arts, led by leading practicing artists and focusing on excellence through creation, experimentation, innovation, and research. Now, almost 60 years later, we have 3 highly ranked arts departments: music, theater and dance, and visual arts, and the interdisciplinary computing and the arts program. These programs are world-renowned not only for our unique approach, but for our highly accomplished faculty that has included MacArthur Fellows, Pulitzer Prize, Grammy and Tony Award winners, members of the Academy of Arts and Letters, and the only artist in the history of the UC system to be named a university professor by the Office of the President. And we have a remarkable group of similarly accomplished alumni making waves throughout the arts professions and in academia, including leadership positions at Harvard, Stanford, throughout the UC system and elsewhere. Next slide, please. But the arts at UC San Diego is much broader than just the departments. For example, we have leadership in art and technology, including work at the Qualcomm Institute, where faculty researchers are doing cutting-edge work that brings together artistic creation with the development of new technologies: spatial audio, computer graphics, augmented reality, telematic performance, etc. We have over 30 student art and performance organizations, one of the world's great and most innovative site-specific art collections, the Stewart Collection. Art Power, the presenter that brings excellent music, dance, film, and spoken word performances to campus. 2 distinguished affiliated arts organizations that live on campus, the La Jolla Playhouse and the La Jolla Symphony and Chorus. And we have some very exciting new developments coming: the reopening of the Mandeville Art Gallery, the opening of Park and Market, UCSD's home downtown that includes performance and exhibition spaces, and the opening of the Epstein Family Amphitheater. Now we're building a strategy, including working groups, that bring campus and community leaders, students, arts department faculty, and all of these arts organizations to the table to discuss what we can do together, how to integrate our programs, and how to make them more accessible to students and the entire campus and surrounding community. Among other things, we're developing artsucsd.edu, next slide please, a web page that will provide a single destination for information on all arts research resources on campus and provide the public with easy ways to search and learn about all exciting things going on. But above all, we believe that even with the distinguished history of excellence and innovation in the arts here, the best is yet to come, because what we can do together will take our work to a whole new level, and with our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, will make that work more accessible to everyone here on campus and to people throughout the San Diego region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rand. It's so exciting to see the focus on the arts as a comprehensive strategy for the campus. So we look forward to learning more as time goes on about all those great collaborations. So next in our lineup is Associate Vice Chancellor for Resource Administration, Marie Carter-Dubois, who will be talking about the ESR Tiger Teams and the Center for Operational Excellence. Marie?
Next slide. So it all started with a challenge, the challenge that many of us are very familiar with, which is the enterprise system renewal. And that left us with quite a lot of changes to manage. It left us actually with a very difficult choice to continue to perform our daily work or trying to find some solution. And because we are extremely decentralized in academic affairs, it felt like we were more isolated and in silos. So despite the great work and a lot of effort from all our colleagues to try to find solution, many of us at the department level, school level, division level, started to do some list of challenges as the one you see here. But it's very difficult to prioritize the list of challenges, and it was very difficult to even find a solution for some of them. That plus a very challenging communication system made really the situation difficult. So next slide, please. So what we've done is we've created a Tiger team, and that was a very good collaboration and a great example of collective impact. Many of us get together. The Tiger teams are representation from each division and school, can be fund manager or another person. And together we started to go through those lists of challenges. Together, not only we decided to be leaders of opinion in our respective area, but the Tiger team is led by another Tiger lead, who is also a peer of the Tigers. So we have a group of experts that together they decided to what are the priority of those challenges, how they can communicate back to their divisions and their department efficiently. And they left at home a little bit the hat of the division's worker. They really represented the university as a whole and helped me move forward their priority to other areas. Next slide, please. So for those of you who are still struggling with the daily challenge of ESR, you would think, yes, but there's many things that we need to do. Absolutely. But we can all do them if we are together. So we have created through the Tiger team a way to identify very quickly when staff are needed. And we are able now to recruit, train and deploy such staff to the area that are at the most in needs. We have also been able to work collectively on one of the accounting issues that we're encountering that is called default payroll project. Some fund managers, some departments are struggling more than others, and collectively we've tried to help each other. We also created a path forward to help retain our staff very timely. And I'm very proud to report that this escalation path is working very well. So this group needs to be extremely agile, extremely lean in order to adapt to the very challenging context that we have in terms of job markets. So this is an example among many others of a project that could only being possible with all of us. And in the slides before, I showed the fund manager, as you have seen, but this concept can be duplicated in other areas where we're struggling. So the same concept can really be used to be performed in other areas such as academic HR. And we are thinking and creating those Tiger teams. So I would like to welcome in the breakout room your feedback, all your creative idea, your innovative idea to tackle all the operational challenges that are in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bree. I think we'll all look forward to seeing what we can do to be more synergistic in our administrative work. So thank you. And finally this morning, we would like to welcome Caroline Sandoval, Associate Director for the Teaching and Learning Commons, and Leslie Carver, Provost of Marshall College, to talk about the anti-racist pedagogy learning community.
Thank you, Alison. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Carolyn Sandoval, and Provost Carter and I are glad to be here to talk about inclusive pedagogy, particularly the anti-racist pedagogy learning community. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons this learning community was developed is because following the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, the Teaching and Learning Commons Engaged Teaching Hub received multiple requests from departments for resources and workshops related to inclusive pedagogy, as well as for guidance on how to improve the climate in their departments. This heightened awareness of the presence and consequences of racism in our country seemed to awaken the conscience of our campus community about Black student experiences at UC San Diego. And this presented us with a unique opportunity to move beyond talking about inclusive pedagogy to thinking more specifically about anti-racist teaching practices. So with the goal of bringing faculty and graduate student educators together in a spirit of shared learning and a commitment to working together to create systemic change, we developed the anti-racist pedagogy learning community and opened it up to our first cohort in fall 2020. And we are currently working with our second cohort. The learning community is grounded in social justice and critical race theories with an emphasis on the work of scholars of color. And it includes a deep dive into understanding the historical roots of educational inequity. Participants in the learning community meet for 2 quarters, and as co-learners, we engage with reading and other learning materials. We spend time individually and collectively reflecting on and discussing what we are learning and how it applies to our work as educators. And the content really focuses on how we all have been socialized to participate in both conscious and unconscious ways in systems of oppression, particularly racism. We also talk about the impact of systemic racism on our students and continued educational inequities. And finally, we focus on actions that support the well-being of Black and other minoritized students at UC San Diego. Next slide, please. The program was developed and is facilitated by the Teaching and Learning Commons Engaged Teaching Team, and we have several partners who are working toward collective impact. So participants apply for the program, and faculty participants receive a $5,000 stipend to support a project that they propose that is related to anti-racist pedagogy, and graduate students receive a $1,000 stipend. So we have multiple partners who recognize the importance of this program and have contributed. Graduate Division supports the graduate student participants. The Sanford Institute for Empathy and Compassion support faculty from the School of Medicine and Biological Sciences. The Changemaker Institute also provided funding for faculty participants. And finally, our participants are incredibly important partners in working to eliminate opportunity gaps through collective impact. And I'm going to turn it over to Provost Carter, who's going to talk about the Dimensions of Culture program and their involvement in the learning community.
Thanks, Carolyn. So the Dimensions of Culture writing program in Marshall College has always been focused on social justice and diversity, but really sought to increase anti-racist teaching practices and provide training for graduate teaching assistants in anti-racist teaching. The project focused on a lot of different aspects of instruction, but one of the main things was assessment practice. So the focus on assessment practices emphasizes student learning and effort rather than mastery. This encourages students to engage more deeply with the course material, take greater risks in their writing practice, and deepen their knowledge of themselves as learners, and more readily transfer their learning into other courses. This practice also empowers instructors to engage with their students at different levels of experience and tailor their feedback on students' work toward the students' individual and particular needs. It's too early to have data on the impact of these practices, but students' responses are positive, assessments are ongoing, and the program is holding listening sessions to gather student feedback. Can you go to the next slide? I just wanted to end with a quote from a student who really emphasized that the grading practices being used in DOC allow them to think about their own mastery of the material and not try to second guess where TAs and instructors are coming from. So we think that this is having a really positive impact on students, and we're looking forward to future assessments and discussing it in the breakouts. Go to the next slide. So thank you very much for your attention. We're really looking forward to talking to you soon in the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Carolyn and Leslie. And thank you to all of our lightning talk presenters this morning for sharing their impactful work with us. So you are now encouraged to transition into one of our breakout rooms for the next portion of the forum. The links to each breakout room can be found on the web page posted in the chat. You're welcome to choose any breakout room that interests you, even if it's a different room than the one you selected when you registered. Perhaps you've been inspired by one of our great lightning talks. And so we will see you back here after the breakout sessions a little after 11 o'clock. Enjoy the breakouts, make contributions, engage with your colleagues, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.